Hey there, everyone. Let's talk about Severance again. Because wow, did this episode just rewrite everything we thought we knew? This is about Rob's reviews, and we finally got the full Gemma backstory. It had romance, deception, psychological horror, and even an ill advised gift of ants. Buckle up because we have so much to unpack. Severance has always been a show wrapped in icy coldness, both in its themes and literal setting. The sterile white hallways of Lumon, the fluorescent lighting that seems to hum with existential dread, the bleak winter landscapes that make every outdoor scene feel like an extension of corporate purgatory. And then, in episode 7, we get an opening so jarringly different that it almost feels like a different show. It's warm, it's colorful, it's fall. People are bustling around, talking, laughing, living their lives in ways that seem downright foreign in the Severance universe. It's not just the change in atmosphere that makes this scene hit differently. It's also the fact that it's shot on film, giving everything an even softer, more nostalgic glow as if we're watching a cherished memory rather than a mere flashback. And then there she is, Gemma. Not the subdued robotic version we've come to know in Lumon, but the real Gemma. The one who was once a Russian literature professor at Gans College, strolling across campus like an actual functioning human being. It's almost eerie to see her this way, knowing what we know now. We've spent so much time seeing her as a fragmented, mysterious presence, first as a memory, then as a question mark, and finally as a woman trapped in some sort of severed purgatory. And yet, here she is, whole, vibrant, unknowingly walking toward a fate that she and we can't prevent. Then we get to have these romantic scenes. But because this is Severance, it's absolutely dripping with tragic undertones. Mark and Gemma first met at a blood donation drive, because of course they did. What better way to set up the idea that their relationship is built on sacrifice, pain, and something deeply, deeply unsettling? The moment itself is charming enough. They're both there for the same reason, both engaged in intellectual work, both unknowingly taking their first steps into a love story that, at last, from Mark's perspective, will end in utter devastation. But this is Severance, so even the seemingly innocent details have layers upon layers of meaning that make you want to pause the episode, take a deep breath, and question why you ever got emotionally attached to these characters in the first place. Case in point, the conversation they have while donating blood. Mark is grading an essay about drug use among World War I soldiers titled All Quiet on the Western Front, which is, first of all, an absolutely incredible pun. But beyond the wordplay, the subject itself is deeply relevant. He's reading about soldiers who turn to drugs as a way to detach from the trauma of war, a concept that, let's be honest, is basically the thesis statement of Severance. Meanwhile, Gemma is studying the death of Ivan Lich by Leo Tolstoy, a novella about a man confronting his own mortality. So to recap, Mark is reading about people trying to escape their suffering, while Gemma is analyzing a story about a man who spends the entire book coming to terms with his impending death. If there was ever a moment that summed up the entire emotional arc of their relationship, this is it. At least from Mark's perspective, their love story is one that leads to loss, a first chapter in a book whose ending he never wanted to read. And just in case the scene wasn't already soaked in meaning, symbolism, and existential doom, the camera casually lingers in the blood donation machine, revealing, in the most Severance way possible, a massive Lumen logo stamped onto it. Because, of course, Lumon has their fingerprints on this moment, marking their territory and the moment that should have been free from their reach. It's a reminder that even before Mark and Gemma's lives were severed in the literal sense, Lumon was already present in the background, quietly influencing the course of their life. This scene does so much more than just provide a backstory for Mark and Gemma's relationship. It's a gut wrenching reminder of how much has been lost. It's an ominous hint at the ways Lumon's influence extend beyond its walls, and it's a carefully constructed setup and something bigger, something we don't fully understand yet, but that we know is coming. Because in Severance, nothing is just a flashback, nothing is just nostalgia. Everything is a puzzle piece, clicking into place just before the floor drops out from under us. This episode of Severance wastes absolutely no time yanking us straight from the warm, nostalgic glow of Mark and Gemma's meet cute into one of the biggest bombshells of the series so far. And honestly, this reveal is so massive that if you weren't already questioning everything about this show's reality, now would it be a great time to start? Because yes, Gemma Scout is alive. Not a clone, not just a revision of Miss Casey with a different backstory. She is Gemma Scout. And because Severance never stops at just one mind melting revelation per episode, we find ourselves drowning in a dozen more mysteries before we even have time to process what this means. Gemma's new reality inside Lumen is as bleak as you'd expect, though it somehow manages to get even weirder than we thought possible. We're introduced to her world through a cryptic, borderline unsettling exchange with a nurse who bombards her with questions that sound like they were ripped straight out of an anxiety dream. If you were caught in a landslide, would you be more afraid of suffocating or drowning? Solid bedside manner right there. Her daily routine consists of regimented activities, calisthenics, reading, and eating. What can only be described as corporate dystopia cuisine, complete with food literally shaped like the Lumen logo. And while most of it looks like it belongs in the tray of a Star Wars stormtrooper, I have to admit the flaky dinner roll does look kind of good. But let's get to the real nightmare, the rooms. Oh, the rooms. This episode finally connects the dots on something that's been haunting us since season 1. What exactly are the MDR files? Why did the refiners need to sort them? And what the hell does that even mean? Based on what we see in Chikai Bardo, my best guess, which, let's be real, Severance will probably prove wrong in another 3 episodes, is that each file corresponds to a specific room that Gemma visits. Each space is its own eerie little hellscape, and as soon as Gemma steps inside, she's severed into an entirely new identity that only exists within that room. If she's in the dentist's office, that's her entire reality. If she's trapped in a turbulence simulator that's basically a plane crash nightmare on repeat, well, tough luck because for that version of Gemma, life has always been an endless cycle of stomach churning terror. The real gut punch moment comes when she begs for a break. Can I at least get a break? She pleads with Dr. Mauer, a man whose entire existence radiates villain energy. His response? But it's been 6 weeks. Her reaction is devastating. I was just here. And that's when it really clicks. Time has completely lost all meaning for Gemma because she's only ever aware of the moment she's in. Every time she enters a new room, she's essentially born into that space, experiencing life only within its walls until she leaves and it's wiped clean again. She doesn't accumulate memories, she doesn't have continuity, she just exists, suffers, and resets. And because Severance loved to complicate things even further, we also get a glimpse of something called the control room. Here, each MDO refiner appears to have a corresponding agent watching them in real time, and just to make things even creepier, each agent looks suspiciously like their refiner counterpart. They have a direct live feed to both MDR and Gemma's activities, meaning they've been tracking Mark's entire career at Lumon from day one. So, why? What's the point of all of this? Mr. Drummond, who at this point has solidified himself as that boss who probably uses synergy, unironically flat out asked Dr. Mauer, are the Severance barriers holding? To which Mauer replies, yes, the technology is working. And there it is, At the most basic level, Gemma's endless cycle of misery seems to be a test for Lumen's severance technology. The big question now is what exactly MDR has been doing in relation to all of this. Has Mark unknowingly been refining Gemma's emotion this whole time, sorting them through the four temper system introduced earlier in season 2? Is MDR something constructing the ultimate ini Gemma, or is the department just being used to fine tune the severance process itself? Whatever the endgame is, one thing is clear. Nothing that's happening at Lumon is just a job. Everything, the files, the rooms, the severance barriers, is part of something much, much bigger. And it just shows the track record tells us anything. It's that we're only scratching the surface. Well, let's really dig into this because this scene is absolutely packed with unsettling implications. First off, Drummond dropping that casual little bomb, "You'll have to say goodbye to Gemma when Cold Harbor is complete," is insane. Like, excuse me? Goodbye in what sense? Is she just going to get her memories wiped again? Will outie Gemma cease to exist entirely? Or are we talking about something way darker, like full on death? Given the way this show operates, I'd bet on the latter. Lumen doesn't do halfway when it comes to existential horror. Then we have Gemma's eerie realization. There's only one room I haven't been to yet, and today it had a name on it, Cold Harbor. First of all, what a chilling way to frame it. The fact that she's been wandering through these ominous, nameless rooms, each one presumably more disturbing than the last, and now one finally has a name, and it's called Harbor. That alone sounds like something straight out of psychological horror film. Like if I were trapped in an experimental corporate hellscape and I suddenly came across a place called Cold Harbor, I would simply not go inside. Nope. I'd be running in the opposite direction. But of course, Dr. Maurer, the absolute creep that he is, has other plans. His response to Gemma's question about what happens next is just unhinged. You will see the world again, and the world will see you. That sentence alone is so loaded with cryptic menace. I don't even know where to start. On the surface, it would mean reintegration, like maybe after going through whatever horror show Cold Harbor entails, she'll be sent back into the real world. But the way he phrases it off is just something saying that you'll wake up or you'll be free. It's the world will see you, which make it sounds more like some kind of grand transformation rather than a return to normalcy. Like, is Lumen planning to unleash Gemma into the world in some new form? Will she be some reprogrammed care worshipping disciple? A new iteration of whatever horrific process they've been refining? And then, of course, we get to the real gut punch. Gemma, holding on to the tiniest silver of hope, asks the most human question possible. Does this mean I'll see Mark again? Actually, I was teary-eyed by this part, and Maurer, this absolute menace, hits her with the most unnerving non-answer ever. Mark will benefit from the world you're siring. Kier will take away all his pain, just as he has taken away yours. Sir, what does that even mean? First of all, siring, that word choice alone is deeply unsettling. It makes it sound like Gemma is creating something, like she's birthing an entirely new existence, one where Mark II will somehow be remade in Lumen's version. And the fact that Maurer frames it like Kier is the one taking away their pain? Yeah, no thanks. We've seen what relief looks like at Lumen, and it sure as hell isn't peaceful. So we already know Maurer is a manipulative creep, but here he just doubles down in the most desperate and transparent way possible, sensing that Gemma still has too much hope. What does he do? He flat out lies to her. Your husband remarried last year and he has just a daughter now. First of all, rude. Second, does he really think she's going to just accept that? The way he's framing it, like she should just move on and start emotionally imprinting on some other room in this nightmare facility, is peak Lumen gaslighting. And then this is where it gets extra cheesy. He suggests that she's already moved on, that she's felt something in one of the rooms that's stronger than what she had with Mark. And the way he says it, maybe I've seen it. Sir, you watch her? What kind of sick voyeuristic experiment is Lumon running here? Maurer is practically salivating at the idea that Gemma is becoming something else, something new, and he gets to play puppet master. Except, plot twist, he overplays his hand because Gemma, yeah, she's not here for this nonsense. And in one of the most satisfying moments of the episode, she absolutely clocks him in the back of the head with a chair. Boom. No hesitation, no second guessing. Just instant shut the hell up energy. And then she books it, running through the hallway, somehow finding her way to the elevator and escaping the testing floor. And this is where things get real. Because when she steps out of that elevator, we don't see any Gemma anymore. We see Miss Casey. The sheer shock of this moment is wild, and it immediately recontextualizes so much of what we thought we knew about Lumen's severance experiments. Because if Casey is Gemma, then what the hell has she been this whole time? Has she always been in this weird half-life state? Was she specifically created as a more extreme test of the severance barrier? And then we get that quick montage one of signature tribute sequences where we see Innie Mark sculpting a tree from a clay during one of Miss Casey's wellness sessions, and that tree, it represents the site of Gemma's car crash. Which means Cobell knew. She had to know. She watched Mark's sessions, and now suddenly all of those weird, almost motherly interactions between Miss Cobell and Casey seems way more sinister. Was Miss Casey's entire existence designed to see if severed people could be re-exposed to people they once loved without breaking? Was Mark unknowingly part of the experiment? And if so, how much of this was orchestrated from the start? Then, just as Miss Casey starts stepping toward the severed floor, probably on the verge of having some kind of massive realization, Milchick appears. Out of breath, looking like he just sprinted his way there to stop her from getting any closer to the truth. And then he hits her with one of the most cold-blooded lines in the series. Your outie came in for a public art exhibition and found herself in the wrong elevator. That was brutal because you can see the way it crushes Miss Casey, who up until this point has always been eerily calm, just deflates, and then when she finally speaks, Milchick doesn't let her finish. Milchick sends her right back to the testing floor where she turns back into Gemma, collapses to the ground, and whispers Mark's name to herself. I mean, come on, this show is relentless. The way it plays with identity, memory, and emotional manipulation is next level, and now we're left with the biggest question of all. What even is Miss Casey? Is she a fully severed version of Gemma, stuck in some endless experimental loop? Is her outie actually alive somewhere, completely unaware of any of this? Or, wild theory alert, was Gemma never actually dead to begin with, and Lumen somehow faked her entire death to turn her into their ultimate severance guinea pig? Whatever the answer is, one thing's for sure. Cold Harbor is about to change everything. The tragedy of Mark and Gemma Scout is heartbreaking, and there's no way to sugarcoat it. Their love story, already fragile, takes a devastating turn before the fatal car crash. Early in the episode, Mark orders a crib just because it's on sale. Then over dinner with Rickon and Devon, Gemma declines a glass of wine because she's pregnant. Finally, all the baby-related symbolism in season 2 makes sense. The boss baby cares, Milchick's blue balloons reminiscent of a gender reveal. This is the true source of Mark and Gemma's pain. But just as we begin to celebrate this revelation, tragedy strikes. Gemma suffers a miscarriage in one of the most gut-wrenching scenes in Severance. She turns on the shower, falls to the floor, and sobs while Mark tries to comfort her. Desperate, Gemma turns to IVF. We see her with Mark at a fertility clinic where a water droplet symbol in the intake form hints at Lumen's possible involvement. because a company with access to all medical records have deliberately targeted them to the experiment. Despite their efforts, IVF fails. The couple's tension boils over in a telling argument. Gemma, clinging to hope, engages with fertility clinic materials, only for Mark to snap, "Why are you wasting your time with this?" He sounds eerily like his depressed, outy self. Gemma, visibly exhausted, calls him out for being an asshole, and Mark, blunt as ever, suggests they just give up. The devastated look on Gemma's face just says it all. The last time we see them together is the night of the crash. Mark, distracted with work, declines to go to a party with Gemma. She has to prompt him to say "I love you" back, a moment that at first seems like nothing more than a sad, everyday interaction between a struggling couple. But after speaking with Gagne, it's clear there's more to it. This was their last moment together, one where Mark was too consumed by his own pain to the present. When Mark wakes up later, Devon asks him the same question Gemma's nurse did earlier. "Where did you go?" Gagne explains that Mark had to relive every moment he had with Gemma before realizing she was gone. It's a deeply bittersweet moment, one that captures the unbearable grief of losing someone you love. As we process everything we've seen, it's hard not to marvel at how meticulously crafted Mark and Gemma's story is. Every small detail, every subtle hint was leading us to this moment. The revelation of their past doesn't just add emotional weight to their characters, it reshapes our understanding of the entire show. It forces us to question everything we thought we knew about Lumon, about the severance process, and about how deeply it intrudes into the personal lives of its subjects. Moving forward, the biggest question remains: what truly happened to Gemma? Is she still out there somewhere, a pawn in Lumen's experiments? If so, is there any way for Mark to save her? Or is she already too far gone? These are the questions that will undoubtedly shape the next episode of Severance. For now, we sit with the weight of their story, the love, the loss, and the unbearable pain of what might have been. Thank you for taking this journey through Mark and Gemma's story, and as always, Severance leaves us with more questions than answers. But that's part of what makes it so brilliant. Until next time, see you!